The people that make that food, they want you to eat it in whatever way possible. They don't care about your health. I'm sorry, let's just be honest. They just want to make it taste good, and they'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider. Another great episode in front of you. I have my friend Luci, came flying in all the way from California. Some of you in the EPI community specifically might remember her or have seen her work throughout the years, but she was on stage, what was that, 2 years ago? 3 years ago now?
2021.
2022. Because we took 2 years off of the summit, we brought you back for a power session.
2022, yeah.
And so Luci is the author of Eat to Lead. A lot of folks have seen me recommend this book. Speaker, professor, and an expert in leadership, and I would say like nutrition and health. Mm-hmm. And so welcome, I guess, formally to the show. Thanks for coming all the way out.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Yeah, we've had a couple of cool days together.
Yeah.
So why I wanted her on, so as a business leader myself, we were just talking about this pre-show, and kind of maybe set it up for our audience. I always think that from the earliest stages of my life when I would do leadership stuff, whether it was like grade school or getting mentored, certainly through high school and college and then into my more adult life, we learn and evolve. We talk about learning and evolving these leadership skills that I think many of us know in a lot of books. And when I met you and read your book, you added a whole nother component on health, wellness, nutrition that I guess I've never really challenged myself with, to be honest, as a business leader, right? I'm honing in my visionary skills, my communication, my mentorship, like all these things that I think naturally we think about as leaders, and maybe not so naturally for me, but maybe it should be for me and many of us, this kind of health and health, wellness, nutrition component that I think make us really effective. So we're going to dive into that, and I think out of all the shows that we've done, this is probably one of the most unique. So, awesome. But take us all the way back. So you've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. You majored in pre-medicine, I believe. So take me all the way back. What inspired you to get into the work that you're doing today?
Okay, all the way back.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a dancer, and my dad wanted me to be a doctor.
Okay, fair
so
enough.
I went into pre-med with a minor in arts, and to pay my way through college, I decided to teach exercise class, which at the time was kind of unique. It was kind of new. You had to take a course, no matter what. If you're certified, you have to take a course. Okay. And so I overlaid that onto my education in pre-med. What I was learning while I was teaching exercise was how well the body works when we take care of it.
Yeah, kind of like a car, right? Or anything else in your life, right? You just don't apply those same concepts to your own body.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly like a car, and I use that analogy often. Yeah. But all we have to do is give our body the basics that we know it needs to survive, basically, and it will go so far, so fast for us, like a really high-end car.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So what I realized through my college experience was that we really need to spend most of our life in the health maintenance phase, and medicine should be a really last resort. And that's why I didn't go into medicine, because I thought everybody needs to know about this. So I went into essentially what I felt was health promotion, in the sense that I started to run and manage high-end health club fitness spas. So the reason why it was high-end was because I wanted people to enjoy going to work out, and then, maybe having a lifestyle around being healthy. So, high-end fitness spas, they have a nice place to exercise. They also have maybe a place to eat, a place to get your massage, a place to relax, maybe a pool, and that's what we should think when we think about health, something enjoyable.
I totally agree. It's like, I don't know what the number was, but the other night, you and I were at the Cavs game, right? And remember LeBron James? I actually think he plays, right? He plays for the Lakers now, right? Out by you. So LeBron James, but from a health standpoint, LeBron James was in like one of these, like an ESPN interview or a Sports Illustrated interview, and he said he spends like $1 million a year on his body. Now, I mean, naturally, right, because his body is his business, right? But think about that, and think about if you could look at your personal budget each year and just say, look, I'm going to, instead of allocating it to my Netflix account or, the bar tab or whatever it might be, let's allocate a little bit that back into our bodies. I think that's just an interesting way to think about, like, the health. You just kind of got me thinking about that when you're talking about the health spa, because you do have all kinds of stuff there, right? You can work out there. There's a community of people there that you can chat with. There's healthy food. There's massage. All the stuff that makes the body better.
Yeah, it's a piece. It's a big piece. And I love that you brought up LeBron James, because I talk about that. Leaders are a lot like professional athletes. Leaders have to be on all the time. They're always in the game, always. And so we do better when we're taking care of our brain, which is our main machine, and the body supports the brain. So when we take care of the body, our brain also works better. Now, if you think about professional athletes who get paid to be in the game, they're in the game sometimes, but the rest of the time they're training and they're in rest and recovery phase.
Right. You are right. Yeah,
so when they come into the game, they are playing all out. They're at their peak. They're always working to be at their peak when they're in the game. So leaders can do the same thing.
Right.
I mean, and being in the game all the time, if you look at it from an athletic standpoint, it's just running you down.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. That's why even if you looked yesterday when we were at the game together, there's some athletes that just, if you play, or take MLB, right? So Major League Baseball, what are they playing? They're playing freaking 100 games, I feel, right? And so every so often they just got to take a break. So they might not even make the lineup that day because they need that rest and recovery. But yeah,
and they have their systems down, though. I mean, they know what they're eating. They know how much they're sleeping.
Right.
It's serious because they know how much it affects their game.
Yeah. So a good segue. So one of the things that we were just talking about was these 6 elements to optimal performance. So talking about LeBron James, and you say that there's mindset, vision, communication, nutrition, exercise, rest, and recovery.
Yes. So
talk about that.
6 elements to leadership optimal performance. They're critical, right? And so many people listening today probably are relating to mindset, vision, communication.
Yeah.
And I'll dive into that in a sec. But the other part is the nutrition, exercise, and sleep. That's the other half.
It's that divide that I was talking about at the beginning of the show, where, again, naturally for me and my mentors through my career, mindset, vision, communication, I think are very natural, right? That's what you think. I think about those are almost like basic skills for a leader. But I never, until I met you, nutrition, exercise, rest, and recovery, I mean, it's just that aha moment, right, where I'm like, well, of course that would be important for a leader too, right? Because you're always on demand. You're always in demand. Yeah. So go ahead and talk about these things for leaders.
Well, I also want to say this goes deeper though than just the surface level. So what these 6 things also do is they affect the leader's optimal performance. Obviously that affects the team and that affects the business success, right?
Correct.
But this also affects leaders' health and energy and longevity, and it affects people all the way down to their cells, to their molecular level, all the way down to the DNA.
Okay.
So if you do it right, you can actually make your DNA up to 15 years younger than your chronological age if you do these things right in concert. Imagine,
I like how that sounds.
Yes. So imagine being having the wisdom of a 50-year-old with the energy of a 35-year-old.
I mean, that'd be absolutely, I mean, that's honestly. So I'm hitting 40 here, and I was telling you pre-show too that I play competitive soccer still. So imagine though, sometimes I do feel like the old guy out there, but imagine, to your point, being 40 and feeling like a 25, 28, or 30-year-old.
Yeah, and I say 15 years because that's conservative. I really think it's.
Do you
20.
think it's long? Oh, wow.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it in clients of my own because, by the way, so I experiment on myself all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, right? You have to be taking in your own approach and methodology.
Yeah, and I'm reading, the research, but I'm also working with people, and I've worked one-on-one with people during my fitness health spa career. I always had clients, so I've worked with hundreds of people, and I've seen it. I've seen people in their 60s do things better than people in their 20s physically.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's one guy that we play soccer with on Wednesdays. He's 54 years old. And I'm like, man, I was just trying to make it to 45. Like, what an inspiration. But yeah, it's wild.
And now, because of the people I follow, like on social media and
Sure.
such, I'm seeing people in their 90s and 100s that doing things that nobody would dream of doing like 50 years ago.
So are they focusing on these performance elements?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm talking about physical right now.
Right,
So the
yeah.
exercise piece.
Yeah.
But with the exercise, you have to have the food and the sleep. Like it all has to go together for the physical piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, let's talk about the other thing that goes along with this, and you could tell me kind of where it fits in, because I think I read it in an article or I think it's a portion of your book. The one thing that also stood out to me, we talk about the food, the sleep, the exercise, but we also talk about socialization, your social life, and how important that is to your overall well-being and health. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. And I want to say that this goes along with the mindset and the vision.
Okay.
So when I say rest and recovery and sleep, that also includes, taking time off. It could be a vacation. It could be a weekend. It's also taking 5 minutes every now and then in your long workday for that recovery for your brain. So that's rest and recovery. Social actually comes into the communication side. So I just use communication as an umbrella, but communication is how you have relationships with others and yourself.
Interesting.
It goes two ways.
Of course.
And that also is part of mindset. Obviously, they work together. So those three things, this other side, they also affect your cells down to your DNA. It's so interesting. We're finding this out in the cutting edge research that what we're thinking, obviously we know, affects the hormones in our body that circulate around to all the cells and can make us healthier, more energized and alive. It'll boost our immune system or it'll take us the other direction.
Okay.
So how you're thinking, how you're relating to others and yourself, and the time that you take, to give yourself a little rest and recovery in that way.
I mean, totally true. In February, I got married, and we spent the month of February down in St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we had our family there. Then we stuck around when the friends all left. Right? We let me and Joy kind of just hung out for a little bit, and then we boarded a boat and did a whole thing around the British Virgin Islands. And when you just started talking about rest and recovery, I was just actually writing about this morning, that taking that time away as a person that frankly works a lot, trying to grow a business. I've never been a bit away from the business for 3 weeks like that before. We were gone from like the 7th to the 27th. And when I came back and got back into it, I must say that leading into between the stresses of getting married and all the stuff that you're planning, right, perhaps, and then just running the business, I was feeling pretty worn out. And taking the time away, I came back, and there is a sense of just like, I don't think I ate all that healthy, to be totally honest with you. I certainly wasn't. I mean, I guess we were hiking and snorkeling and stuff, right? So there was maybe a little bit of a physical exercise component. But just being able to rest, and recover your mind, I came back and I feel so good. And it's notable to me because I'm like, I can't remember the last time I felt this energized. But I was away for 3 weeks for something that I have a lot of love and passion in, but also obviously has a big weight on my shoulders and brings a lot of stress to my life. But yeah, the rest and recovery from just being away when you talk about, and then from the communication point and socializing, meeting new people, hearing different stories, experiencing different things around the Virgin Islands, having deep conversation, not turning on a phone, a TV, a computer, super impactful for sure. So
yeah,
so you're saying socialization fits into that communication component.
It surely does.
Interesting.
And you were energizing your mind in a different way. So
Right.
you're bringing it down from the things that you're used to thinking about, and
Okay.
also maybe some pressure, some
Absolutely.
problem solving, putting all that down, distracting yourself, which is a known way to get more creative about a problem that you have, is to distract yourself from it.
Of course.
Have your brain
Yeah.
do something else.
Right.
And in the background, we know your subconscious is working on the answer.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
how we
interesting.
get so much more creative.
Very interesting.
Yeah, our brains are amazing. I mean, we're just starting to break the surface of all the things we know about the brain.
So I know, right? And as technology advances too, it's going to be like a wild 10 to 20 years, right? It's going to be very fascinating. So the other thing that dawned on me on that 3 weeks or so away from the business, and we talked about our sleep cycles. I think sleep is always fascinating to me as well. This whole sleep cycle, when we're sleeping, what happens when we sleep, what is the ideal time. The other thing, I probably slept before the show. You asked me what was my like natural wake time, and it's like 5:30 to 6 o'clock. I'm naturally waking up, and I certainly did that while I was on this boat trip around the Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands. But I was going to bed way earlier than I ever do. I'm talking 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and getting like long runs of sleep, which is like totally unheard of for me. So maybe that's also why I'm super re-energized. But in studying sleep, I think it's obviously a big factor. I was telling you pre-show that you look at somebody like Elon Musk or Barack Obama, they're saying 6 hours. One of them starts, I think Elon starts at 10 p.m., where Barack starts at 6 or 12 a.m. Mm-hmm. And then you have like Oprah or Serena Williams, they're saying, or Richard Branson are saying 5 hours. And then you have somebody like Donald Trump that says 3 hours is enough. Mm-hmm. So how does sleep factor into this whole thing too?
All right, hold on. You mentioned one other guy. Not Steve Jobs, but
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Yes, yeah, he's the 10-hour guy. So I'm like, 10 hours? I don't know how like you get anything done. I think I was laughing because people sometimes ask me, Scott, how are you so productive? How are you so productive? I was like, well, you got up at 9, and I've been up 3-4 hours already cranking.
Yeah.
But 10 hours, and then think about that. If you sleep 10 hours, depending on what time frame, how do you kind of get cranking into the day at that point? It's just so, because there's the business side of it, right? And then there's like the personal, to your point, like all your components. Like I like to get a workout in. I play soccer. I have a family. I have a business. So if I'm sleeping 10 hours and then I only have like another, like 10 hours of the day, give or take, I don't know how I'm getting it all in. But yeah, Bill Gates was the 10-hour.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just put this word in here.
Sure.
Efficiency. So, and I'm going to go back to all the things we just talked about that take time out of your day. So not only sleep, but also eating, feeding ourselves, and social, mental recovery. Those things take time. And all of these things are the excuse that people say they can't do it is because of time. However, when you do take the time for these things, we notice our brain just runs so much faster, so much more efficiently. We get those creative ideas. Yeah. We're more innovative. We're more able to solve problems, make decisions, like boom, boom, boom. So maybe that is what Bill Gates has found out.
Maybe. I mean, pretty smart guy, right? So yeah, that's pretty wild. But so your sleep though, is there an ideal sleep? Is it 4 hours? Is it 6 for the as a health person? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's different for everyone.
Okay.
And I recommend that you experiment. So if you go on vacation and you have the ability to go to sleep and wake up without an alarm, without forcing yourself to lay in bed, and also take out the natural light as much as possible. So when it gets dark, turn your lights down and such. Don't be on your computer and your phone, and just see how long you sleep. Now, to another point, especially because you just talked about your vacation and sleeping longer, sometimes we need recovery sleep. So there might be a time where you go on vacation and for the first 3 days or so, you need a lot more sleep. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, yes, we can recover through sleep, and then we'll go to a natural cycle. Okay. So after that, see what happens when you wake up without your alarm.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting. Yeah, that I think. So, do you think that like Donald Trump reporting that he sleeps 3 hours? Do you think he's full of it or what? I mean, 3 hours?
No. I have to say, current sleep research says that while we sleep, our brain is clearing beta amyloid proteins, which are proteins that can build up in the brain and cause dementia. So that is one huge reason to get enough sleep.
Yeah, to get enough sleep. I guess I didn't know that either. That's quite interesting. So you're clearing out that kind of stuff. So so a 3 hour cycle is probably not a great cycle.
Yeah, the sleep
it's
research
probably not ideal.
No, sleep research recommends 7 to 8 hours.
7 to 8 hours.
So but you and even my dad too. He sleeps naturally 6 hours and he feels great.
Yeah, I mean I do feel good, right?
Right. It might not be you, and you might get 6, and that's just fine.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think the keynote, and for our listeners too, the keynote here is experiment. You said that like 2 or 3 times now. I'm like writing it down. Is that is like, again, it goes back to like a deliberate effort and practice.
Yeah.
So it's different for everybody. You'll never know what's right for you if you're actually not just deliberately practicing.
Yeah.
What sleep cycle is actually is right for you. What about eating? So again, pre-show we were talking. You and your husband don't eat till like 9 or 9:30 at night. So
that's a good time.
What time? That's so 9 or 9:30 at night. But what time are you going to bed?
12.
Like 12. So that gives you enough time to kind of digest all that stuff and make it happen.
No, I lay in bed. No, I lay in bed at 12.
Okay.
And depending on food, for sure, because food gives me energy, for sure.
Well, of course, right? Yeah.
So if I eat too close to sleeping, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to lay in bed for a while. But generally speaking, I'll fall asleep, depending on food, between 12:30 and 2.
Wow.
But that's natural for me.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I worked in several companies, but also for the Department of Defense, where I had positions that I really need to be at work early. And the myth is that you just do it long enough and you'll get used to it. But that's not true, at least not for those of us who have a real strong circadian rhythm. And we're all born with it, actually. We're born with a rhythm that we can shift a little bit back and forth. But generally speaking, if we stick with it, it's going to be the best opportunity for our health.
Okay.
So for example, when I lived in Manhattan, I would get up at 5 a.m. to open the 92nd Street Y, but it was across the street, so I had to open it at 5:30.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Roll out of bed 5 a.m.
Yeah, right.
But I could not fall asleep. I would lay in bed at 10 and not fall asleep until midnight, never fail. So I was getting 5 hours, and that was not enough for me.
Okay.
So my whole career in Manhattan, I'd be done with work by 2.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do anything else. Like I
'cause
wasn't
you're
able
just
to go
crashed.
and have fun or do anything exciting that whole time because I just wanted a nap, but I couldn't nap because I'm not a really good napper. So I would just stay awake in a dead zone for about 8 more hours.
Oh my gosh. So nonetheless, how quickly did you change your lifestyle? How quickly did you leave Manhattan and do something else, or stay in Manhattan and do something else?
Well, right after Manhattan was when I went to Seoul, South Korea.
Right. Yeah. If for the audience listening in or watching, what's also fascinating about her, I asked her the other night, like, well, where are you from? And you've traveled so much and lived so many places. It's actually quite interesting. But yeah, South Korea.
Yeah, and that was Department of Defense job.
Okay.
So we were opening a recreation center. It was a high-end, like white glove fitness club spa for the armed forces in Asia. And so it would basically be for anyone in Asia to come and have a nice place to relax. They know about relaxation,
Of course,
and it was at a really reasonable rate for them. But I had 9 departments and 100 direct reports.
My gosh.
I helped them build that thing from, pretty small to pretty large. So I would say the ground up, they were just starting at the time that I got there. And I had to be there oftentimes at 5:30 and 6 as well. A lot of military people came. Sometimes generals or diplomats would be there at 5:30 and they wanted me to be there too. Like I was a representation of that place. So I needed to be there to greet them.
Yeah.
And so I did same thing, try to create that schedule where I was working out by 6 a.m. at the very least. And I did that for another 4 or 5 years, even after I left that job.
Right.
And then finally, my learning just kind of set in, all the things I've been reading and the research and such. I said, I'm just going to see what my natural rhythm is. Okay. And that's when I found out I'm really more of a 12 to 7:30, 1 to 8 kind of a person.
Yeah. That's fascinating. See, this is like my next 30 days. I'm doing this sleep experiment for sure, cool. 100%. Yeah. So I got to take a quick break. When I want to come back, one of the other things that you talk about, I think actually I saw it maybe in the book, definitely in the power session, you talk about genes and the effect of genes and how they kind of contribute or maybe not so much to all of what we're talking about. So we'll get to all of that next. Just stick with us. We'll be right back.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a CPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it. Hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny. 11 actions an owner must take to rapidly grow value and unlock wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Exit is Now podcast. So diving in here, I think one of the things you hear a lot, or at least let's call it in my friend group, right? They're saying that, well, genetically I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'm not as athletic, or I eat this or I eat that. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting in hearing you speak and reading your book is that although I certainly think genetics play a part, it's not necessarily the whole part, and we can influence that. Our genes don't necessarily prohibit us, maybe, is where you're going. Is that fair to say?
So glad you brought that up. What we found is, in research, is that lifestyle is responsible for about 70-75% of our health outcomes.
That much?
Yeah.
Wow.
The rest is genes.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying. That's a lot. 75% is influenced by our choices, our life choices.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Wow.
And our genes change based on our lifestyle.
Right. Okay,
So
fair.
that's the science called epigenetics.
Okay.
It's what we do over and above genetics, and that research is studying how what we do affects our genes. So, for example, if someone's family history, had a great-grandfather, a grandfather, and a dad that had the same kind of maybe cardiovascular illness and died the same way, the next person down doesn't have to have that as long as they live the right kind of lifestyle. And actually, I had an uncle who was married into the family. He wasn't in my genetic line, but his dad and grandfather died at 40 from a heart attack.
Wow.
So he became an avid bicycler.
Yeah,
Bicycled a lot all his life, cardiovascular health, and he lived till 80.
Interesting, right? So again, going back to deliberate practice, deliberate effort, right?
He doubled his lifespan.
Yeah, absolutely. So 40 to 80, so he was a cyclist.
Yeah,
that's what's his, and he made,
But he also ate well.
Right. There's obviously other components. That's quite interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting in talking to you as well is that kind of going back to this, so we learn and we grow and we evolve in these more what I call traditional leadership skills. But no one, at least in my life, including my own parents, and my father, Chris, it never really taught me how to eat, right? We just kind of ate, and we kind of exercised. Like my dad's an avid runner, runs marathons and stuff like that. And grew up fairly athletic, but they never really, there was no really going back to this deliberate practice. There's really no deliberate practice on how to eat, how to exercise, how to mentally, your mental health. Why do you think that is? And do you see that changing with next generation of folks? I think the folks in our office, relatively young group, way more interested in that lifestyle or a healthier lifestyle and mental health than maybe our parents were.
It's great. And they're interested in that because they're learning that it's important.
Of course.
So let's see where to start with that.
I know. I think it's a big question. Why, and I think I took a health class in school, but no one really told me how to eat and exercise. But they did tell me how to be a better leader, better communicator, better visionary.
Well, that's good because a lot of people don't even get that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
The conversation isn't at the kitchen table anymore, but even when it was all based on marketing. Unfortunately, if you ask a lot of people, what they're learning about how to eat is coming from some kind of marketing. If you look at it, it could be a diet, it could be a diet book, it could be a guy dressed like a doctor talking on social media or the know, TV. Yeah. And I have to say, some people yesterday asked me about if I read this or that book, and I don't read nutrition books because that's regurgitated information from the actual research, and I read the research.
Yeah, read the research.
So, but I also know the people can't, people have things to do. They can't be diving into nutrition research. I mean, so that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, and your book there's a lot of research that you note in your book along the way as well. So I think it's actually quite fascinating. And so one of the things that's, I think, in the book, in your power session from a couple of years ago too, that I thought was fascinating from a person that runs a hyper growth company, is you talk about these you call them energy consuming brain activities.
Yeah.
What are the energy consuming brain activities?
Okay.
So that our audience can kind of note these things,
Yes.
be aware.
This is according to the Neuro Leadership Institute.
Okay.
There are 5 most energy consuming activities that the brain does. So one is just understanding information.
Sure.
The other one is memorizing it, putting it into your memory. The other one is regurgitating it, taking it out of the memory banks. Then there's decision making and inhibiting, which is not doing what your first inclination is to do. So if you think about it, leaders are doing this all the time, or people in leadership roles are doing it all the time. And if you think about it, all of these things are interacting. So for example, right now, you and I are talking. So I'm bringing things out of my memory banks. You're working to understand what I'm saying. You're working on putting things into your memory banks. We're both working on making decisions, what we're going to say next, and also inhibiting. Maybe I want to say this. No, maybe I'll say something else, right? So we're doing all of those 5 things, just talking here.
Yeah, I could tell you after all of these podcasts, I'm going to be pretty exhausted. What I wrote down when I was just hearing you talk about it, what came to mind for me is, so my first business was a landscaping company, right? So very physical, pretty owner-operator, right? So I was doing the business side, but also out there actually planting the trees, laying the mulch, laying the brick, mowing the lawn, right? I think I'm actually more tired in this business than I was with the physical business. There's nothing physical really about my business today, right? But I am definitely... obviously, I'm older, but I think I'm more tired in this business than I was even in the physical business.
Yes, and I always correct people when they say, oh, I'm getting older, so I must be getting more tired. I say, you have more responsibilities now. That's why you're getting more tired. Of course we feel more tired than we did in high school when everybody took care of us and all we had to do was go to school and maybe.
And that's fair.
Right?
That is.
And the same thing with college. College, you just listen and learn maybe. But people were telling you what to do. Now you're making a lot of decisions, especially in the leadership role. You're making a lot of decisions for a lot of people, and you have a lot more responsibility. So I don't say that age is the issue per se, but I will say, remember that your brain uses 20% of the energy that you need. And your brain weighs about 3 to 5 pounds. So that is not proportional.
Yeah, I was going to say, think about that.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy. Absolutely.
So you're sitting at a desk that people feel is a lot. I was just sitting at my desk. I was just being creative or solving a problem or writing a report or something. And then I went home. I was so tired. Like, what is
it's
that?
all the brain activity.
Yeah.
So what is and a leader that's kind of like go, right? For me, like I'm either in the office, and I want to talk a little bit about travel to you too. I think one of my biggest things when it comes to health and wellness is my routine on the road is different than my routine at home. We'll talk about that next. But in that, EOS, EOS Global, the EOS implementers. So Gino Wickman talks about, I think in their system they call it a clarity break. So you kind of get away from what you were just saying. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm creating, I'm problem solving, I'm processing information, I'm understanding data. Take a break. So in a go kind of mentality, what is your recommendation to kind of midday in this 2 p.m. slump, if you will, recharge the brain a little bit? What can we be doing during the day?
Well, I would say the first thing is the whole day has to be the system.
Okay.
So if you got your whole day taken care of with little breaks and food, then you're less likely to have that slump in the middle of the day, especially if you're getting enough sleep.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Now, that midday slump is everybody has it.
Okay.
It's pervasive.
Yeah.
So, however, what I think it is that we're stuck with this 3 times a day eating pattern.
Right, exactly.
Some people
yeah.
are not. Some people do 1 time a day. And that 2 p.m. slump, when we're slumping, that means we need energy in some way.
Right, okay.
So, and our first energy source is food.
Food?
So, do you have to be stuck to 3 times a day eating?
No,
No,
of course not.
Right.
Well, we just talked about right at the top of the show. We were talking about it's a choice.
Yeah.
So no, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, you can make
Break
your
the cycle.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
make your system the way it works for you. So
Okay.
what I do a lot of times to get out of that is I have 2 lunches, basically half and half.
Half and half. Yeah.
I spread my lunch out. So
Okay.
because especially since I eat so late.
Well, exactly. Right. Yeah. 9:30. Right.
Yeah.
You definitely need 2 lunches. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about like, as you kickstart? We're talking about kickstarting the day. Like I like the concept of it. You should look at it as a full system. One of the things that I reread in your book, preparing for our show too, you talked about eating something before you take in the coffee. You remember that? So,
Yes,
so I have the same routine every morning, and I don't know if this is good or bad. You can critique it. So I get up and I go immediately downstairs, and I have probably like 3 cups of water right out of the gate.
Great.
So right out of the gate, 3 cups of water.
Excellent.
Then the 4th cup though is a hot water. So I drink a 4. So now I'm like, what is that? Like 32 ounces of water in.
Awesome.
Right out of the gate. I feel
Wow.
like this is good,
Yeah.
right? Some days it's kind of challenging to knock down all that water, but I literally just, drink a glass and I kind of look outside and drink a glass and look outside. Then I might sit and read, drink a glass
great.
before I have the coffee. So I'll get those 4 things done, then have the coffee. But I haven't had any food, and I typically won't have any food for like another 2 or 2.5 hours.
Okay.
But should we be kickstarting our day before we're intaking the caffeine?
First of all, I want to say water is excellent for first thing because hydrating your brain is also 80% water.
This is amazing. This is amazing. Yeah.
What? I know.
Yeah, right?
So you've been sleeping. Maybe you haven't even had anything to drink since a couple hours before you slept. So your brain probably needs a little rehydration.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not sure if you've ever noticed, but a lot of times also that slump in any time of the day, if we check the boxes, okay, is it food? Did I eat? Did I sleep well? Did you have water?
Yeah. Have you consumed any water today?
Sometimes all you need to do, maybe you haven't consumed water in 5 hours. You need to have a little bit of water, a couple cups, and you might see that your brain starts refueling, starts regenerating, starts working better.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Right. Do you track your water? And so how much water are you drinking in a day for you?
About 10 cups. However, I also drink coffee, tea,
Yeah.
so that adds to water. And vegetables and fruit have a lot of water, so that adds.
So is fruit, and maybe this is maybe one of the marketing pieces that it was put in front of me. I was saying to you too, it was funny, and as we all know, I think our phones kind of talk to us. So as I've been prepping for our show, right, my phone has been shuffling a bunch of health and wellness to me. So it's actually quite
Okay.
interesting. So I was getting on this diet, and I'm not actually a big fruit guy. I'm more of a vegetable guy. But don't fruit hold a lot of sugars though? Like, is that fattening sugars?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah. The interesting thing about fruit is it's also packaged with a lot of fiber and water.
Okay.
And so the fructose in fruit is basically like entangled with fiber.
Okay.
And so your body has to work to get that sugar out. It takes a while. It takes digestive process to get the sugar out. And so it'll come out slower. And it'll give you a little bit of a longer lasting energy than if you had a candy bar or just plain sugar.
Right.
That processed sugar digests quickly, goes right into the blood, and either it's used or it's put into a storage immediately. That's it. Versus fruit sugar is longer lasting. However, I'll say you will find, as I did in the past, eating an apple doesn't take you very far. It might take you 10 minutes and then you're hungry again, right?
Yeah.
So I always eat my fruit with other food. So if I were to have, like, maybe one of my snacks in the afternoon is apple with nut butter or apple with cheese or some kind of fruit with have a sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And that also extends the life of the energy that your food gives you. So the more that you mix your food, you extend the life of the energy.
So now let's get to the travel portion, right? So pre-COVID, I was traveling a ton, like 225 days a year, was always on the road. Now I'm maybe a little less than half of that, maybe like 100 days a year. And I do find that my lifestyle is quite a bit different from when I'm at home and then when I'm on the road. On the road, I'm probably even I'm certainly less productive, or maybe depending maybe on your definition of productive. I'm usually just a lot more relationship oriented, right? Because I'm usually traveling to speak somewhere to develop a relationship. So it's a lot of what we've been doing over the past couple of days in the recording of the shows, right? Meeting new people and things of that nature. But eating healthy, workout routines, consuming water, or maybe I should try to keep some of the same routines that I have at home. So
Yes.
for the person that travels a lot, what are some of your recommendations to kind of keep this momentum once we've developed it at home?
Yeah. Well, so we're formulating a system for ourselves when we're developing it at home or, at the home work environment.
Yeah.
And you really want to take as much of that system with you when you go on the road. So I've had a lot of time to work on that myself because I like traveling.
Yeah, because you travel quite a bit too.
I love traveling. So we do have to do a little bit of pre-work. I mean, the water is there. It's easy. By the way, I drink from the tap if I have to. I mean,
yeah, of course.
If there's no
if there's no bottled water,
it's
right?
Okay,
There's
I'll taste it first. If it tastes terrible, I'll go buy some. But a lot of the tap water tastes fine, and we can get into that if you wanted to.
Sure.
But then I do go to a grocery store. And I like to stay at hotels that have a kitchenette. And so I'll put stuff into the fridge.
Yeah.
And I only eat out for dinner usually because I'm telling you, across the country, there's not a lot of great places to eat that are healthy and taste good and that don't make you feel slow and heavy after you're done eating. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Right.
I totally agree. I think you mentioned in your book too, thinking about that, the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
And portion control is where you get into that in your book too. And I feel from somebody that does a lot of travel in and out of the country as well, American portions are massive.
Yes, they are.
Like you go to a restaurant, like I think this is what you talk about, right? You go to a restaurant in Italy and eat pasta, and you go to a restaurant in America and eat Italian food. Certainly I think the ingredients are probably fresher over in Italy.
Yeah.
But just simply the portion control is outrageous here.
Yeah.
So to your point of eating out all the time when you're on the road, that you do, I feel much slower on the road than I do at home.
Yeah, and there's a lot of added ingredients in food that we get out that we wouldn't put in if we made them ourselves. I mean, where do I go with this? I mean, there's sugar in sauces, like in Asian food. I love Asian food, but I'm careful about the sauces because there can be a whole lot of sugar, a whole lot of salt, and dressings. I was out yesterday trying to get some lunch, and they're really heavy-handed on the dressings, which is unnecessary. You can make a lot, like 2 tablespoons of dressing last and go a long way in your salad or your sandwich.
Totally.
Same with meats. Look, the CDC just put processed meat on the to avoid list, the risk list.
Really?
It could cause cancer if you eat too much. So that's processed. Now, they called it red meat, okay, but the fact is that most of our red meat in America is eaten in processed form. It's not a good steak. It's like, it's like lunch meat. It's like ground mystery meat in some package of pasta or something like that, right? Yeah. So, and the people that make that food, they want you to eat it in whatever way possible. They don't care about your health. I'm sorry, let's just be honest. They just want to make it taste good, and they'll do whatever it takes. Yeah. So they're not caring about your longevity, whereas you are.
I laugh when you talk about the red meat. We had a couple of our Australian clients in town, and we took them out to a steakhouse locally here, and they had like an Australian Wagyu on the menu, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, are you going to go with something that came from Australia, or are you going to try like one of our American steaks? And he laughed at me, and I was like, you're not going to try it? He's like, I would never eat an American steak. So he went with the Australian Wagyu, right? Because I was like, dude, you came all the way from Australia. You don't want to have like a USDA certified Angus American beef? He's like, no. So to your point, like I think it's interesting looking at other cultures in other countries and how portion control, processed food, natural ingredients, and how it kind of works in our culture. But again, going back to deliberate practice, something that we can navigate around if we're just aware.
Yeah, and I'd love to just go in a teeny bit deeper on the red meat thing, because that's
absolutely
one of the things that's really being talked about in the news and such. It comes in and out. Like you see it, you won't see it. You see
it.
But the other thing is how we raise our animals here. We call them factory farms. So, so I won't go into that too much, but in places like Italy and Spain and such, I mean, they all eat red meat, not every day, not 3 times a day,
Mm-hmm.
but the animals are raised well. They're not packed in. They have lots of space. They have, grass to graze on. We have that here in America too.
Sure.
It's just a matter of choosing the food that came from the right place. What that animal ate is what you're going to be eating. If that animal was injected with hormones and antibiotics on a regular basis, that's what you're putting into your body.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just meat, it's all the other things. But I do want to talk about that because, when you get a sandwich, for example, at a sandwich shop, they put, I don't know, handfuls of processed meat onto your sandwich. And maybe 1 leaf of lettuce, where
It's true. I mean, I might be getting extra meat too. That's probably not the great. I go to the Subway sandwich and get the little bit of spinach and then the extra turkey. That's
should be the
probably
opposite.
not.
Yeah.
It should be the opposite.
More spinach, less turkey.
Yeah.
But we can eat the foods. We can eat all the foods we love. It's just a matter of choosing the right sources of them. And also, if you know it's not that great for you, just eat less. Just eat more of the good stuff.
Goes back to the portion control too.
Yeah.
Do you think so? I hear this a lot, right, from the older generations too. It's like, we've been eating that stuff for years, But do you think it's actually changed from years? Like if you looked at the way food was, the way our cattle was raised, or the way they're processed 50 years ago, do you think it's worse than it was, better than it was, about the same?
Well, it matters what we're talking about.
Okay.
But I'll say we're absolutely eating more processed food now than ever before.
More than ever before.
Absolutely eating more. And when I say processed, I also mean preservatives. And preservatives are not just chemicals, they're also sugar and salt. So when we talk about how bad sugar is for you, it's not that it's not that cookie once a day, actually. It's not even that piece of chocolate once a day.
Right.
It's not a couple teaspoons of sugar in your coffee. That's not what the problem is. The problem is that we're getting hidden sugar in all the foods we eat that are processed. Because that's a really good preservative. It works. One of my clients texted me one day. We both eat the same kind of bread. Okay. I'm not going to say what it is.
Okay.
Because we both had this idea that it was like the best. It was the best one actually that we can find on the shelf.
Okay.
In our stores around our area.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Hey, did you know?" Because we were also all very surprised. It has a lot of grains, and we're very surprised how long that bread lasts. Because there is nothing in there that looks like a preservative at all.
And it lasts long.
Wow. And I'm like, it must be the grains. It must be it's not just grains, but it's also seeds. It's like, there's a lot of antioxidants in there. So.
Okay.
And then she said, "Do you look at this sugar here? Like, this is after we've been eating this bread for quite a long time."
Okay.
And there's there's basically a teaspoon. 5 grams of sugar. So it's basically a little bit over a teaspoon per piece of bread.
That's bad? That's bad, right?
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah. If you're going to eat two pieces of bread and you're going to eat 2 teaspoons of sugar,
Yeah, that doesn't seem great, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like if you took a teaspoon and chucked it in this glass of coffee right now,
that'd be enough.
Took 2.
Yeah, it'd be pretty sweet, right?
Yeah.
2 teaspoons in your coffee.
That would be too sweet for me.
Yeah. So
wow, that's interesting.
That's just in the sandwich, in the bread that we make from home.
Would that have made the bread last longer though?
That
the extra sugar and stuff.
Is what makes the bread last longer. Yeah.
So you moved away from that bread now.
I have, unfortunately. But bread in Italy and France is made every day.
Right.
It doesn't last long. It goes bad after a day. That's why people go to the bread store almost every day to get their bread.
Yeah, see, that's another thing going back to this trip that I was on too. So on this boat that we were on, we had a chef. And the chef made everything fresh every day. So when I'm trying to think about, you got me down this path of like experimenting, right? So in that course of those 7 days that I might have been on that boat, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all in the bread, he made the bread like daily. Like when I would get up, natural state, like a 5:30 or 6 o'clock, he was already up, like doing the bread and getting the things prepped for the day. Cool. So if you think about that, and maybe why I feel so good coming back is that I had the mental break, got away from the stress and the problem solving and the data. I socialized. I got a lot of rest and recovery, and I was eating a lot, but in small portions, and all super fresh. I mean, literally the sushi we had, I caught the fish and he did the next day, served it for us. Yeah. So that's, I don't know if you get any fresher than that, right? Nope. That's pretty wild. So last question as we're hitting the top of the hour here. So last question in this whole nutrition and health thing. The other thing I do a lot of when I travel is drink a lot. So what is your opinion on alcohol? So there's a few guests that have been on this show that are in their 50s, 60s, and they look absolutely incredible, right? And our team always is like, dude, like I want to look like him or like her, and they're like, oh, I'm 68. I'm like, dude, you look like 40. And time and time again, when you talk to these people that look great, they don't drink. Like, no, I don't drink. The boat captain on this boat that we were on never drank. It was actually part of like a religious thing when he was growing up, and then as he moved into his adulthood, though he's not as practicing in his religion anymore, he just never drank. So it was his thing. So the big thing that I do when I travel a lot in these social gatherings is have a few cocktails. So what's your opinion on alcohol consumption? Because that's got to be I'm just thinking like poison to the brain almost, right?
Yeah.
Super fattening, So what's the opinion on alcohol consumption?
Well, I say alcohol is like dessert.
Okay.
So it's like a piece of cake. So if you drink a glass of anything, whether it be wine, beer, liquor, it's the same as eating a piece of cake.
Yep.
Or a pie, whatever you like. So would you eat 3 pieces of pie in one sitting?
I mean, when you think about it like that, no, I'm not even a big sweet guy. I totally would. I would just stay totally away from it. Wow,
Yeah.
That's a very, again, simple way to kind of put it and put it in perspective.
We all talk about it in moderation.
Yeah, of
So
course.
just like dessert in moderation, once
Right.
in a while.
Not after every single meal, not after every single day. That's
Yeah.
also interesting too.
Yeah.
So I want to take a quick break. When we come back, for all the authors and everything that follow us, I told you that I always want to talk to you about how you actually created this thing. I always find it fascinating. So we're going to get into the book real quick as we kind of close out the show. Just give me a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey there, business owners. Are you ready for a game-changing opportunity? Introducing the 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report. Over the past decade, this groundbreaking research has reshaped how we view business ownership and exit planning. This report isn't just another study, it's a deep dive into the evolution of business ownership. It shines a spotlight on the crucial intersection of business attractiveness and owner readiness, revealing the undeniable impact of preparation on achieving successful transitions. With younger generations taking the reins, exit planning is taking on a whole new perspective. Education and awareness about preparing for the future have never been more crucial, and with financial readiness leading the charge, there's a clear opportunity for growth and learning. But here's the kicker. The report shows a surge in exit planning education and understanding, yet many still lack formal transition teams, highlighting the essential role of comprehensive support. So who's got your back? Trusted advisors have evolved from CPAs to financial advisors, making a decade of significant change in support networks. Ready to take the next step towards a successful exit? Dive into the Exit Planning Institute's 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report and start shaping your legacy today. The future is knocking. Are you ready to answer? Discover your readiness level at 2023ownerreadiness.com and take the first step towards a successful and significant exit.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast. So a great show so far. I was saying during the break that I have like copious amounts of notes here, and I'm going to start to experiment. I was laughing with Paige, who's producer of the show, our director of marketing at EPI, and I said, hey, when we go out to a social gathering, when we travel for business, would we eat 7 pieces of cake? And she said probably not. So we might have to not drink 7 drinks. But when we have authors on the show, I always just find it fascinating watching my dad now write 2 books or 1 book, 2 editions. What worked best for him when he wrote the first version of Walking to Destiny? I guess that would have been back in 2016. He went away to a beach down in Florida and pretty much got everything out of his brain and onto paper. The second time, he went to his lake house, and he didn't have the lake house the first time. He went to his lake house, and he was trying to write in, like, spurts, right? Like, he would go down there maybe once a week or for 3 days and 3 days once a week and try to get everything out, and he was struggling. So I said, Dad, you're getting away from the system that you created. Go back down to the beach and get everything out of his head. So he went back down and was much more productive. Some authors are like, they brained up 1 month, take a 1 month off. What is your, how'd you write this one? So what was that experience like for you? This is your first book, right?
Yeah, my first book. Honestly, it was torture.
Yeah, I feel like that's a commonplace too for a lot of authors. So the second time Walking into Destiny 2.0, Dad dumped out 95,000 words. I was like, Dad, this is not a college textbook. We got to get it back down. I think original Walking to Destiny was like 60,000, right? So still pretty, kind of like yours, like pretty good, pretty good thick book, but 95,000 words, crazy. But he said the same thing. It's like pretty exhausting.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? Did you go away? Did you write at home?
I wrote it at home. I wrote it for all the reasons we talked about, that people need to have a better understanding about the basics, fundamentals of how food works in the body and the brain. And I just had seen it in too many people around me. So I knew it needed to be done. And I would go to a coffee shop across the street from my house and basically drink coffee and write the book because I really am a social person. That's why it was so torturous. I like to be around people. I like to be talking. Writing is not my favorite thing, even though I do it. And when I do it, I like to do it well.
Yeah, of course.
So I would go to the coffee shop, and you wouldn't guess this, but I ended up giving myself tendonitis in my shoulders. Because
from typing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
On the laptop, just moving my arms, micro movements for hours, just a little bit on the shoulders. Then I went to the gym and I picked up some heavy weights and put it on top of my shoulders, like I always do, like weights, put it on top of my shoulders. And then I felt this ripping. So my shoulders were so tight, and I wasn't stretching them out. Like, you need to kind of undo all of the tightness that you put into your body when you're at a desk, and I wasn't doing enough of it. So tore my shoulders. They didn't repair. They took 2 years to repair because we're always using our shoulders.
Always up from writing this book?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Was the book
2
done
years.
yet, or did you, by the time that happened, or did you have to take a break?
I was kind of almost done with the book by the time that happened, and then it took, well after the book was published to get the shoulders back.
Wow, what an interesting story. So we're at the top of the hour, so we got to wind down. So I appreciate you coming all the way from California to Cleveland, Ohio, to hang out with all of us.
Pleasure. Thank
You can see a lot of Luci's work on the EPI website, so I invite you guys to go onto the blog. So you can go to resources tab of the EPI website, go onto the blog. Most recent articles all around decentralization of the owner. So again, what I want our audience, who, whether you're a business owner or a business advisor, to think about is, how did everything that we just talked about over the last hour drive value for the owner from a business, personal, and financial point? So I'll leave that as a thinking point, perhaps, for our audience. What I love about what you do and how it relates to what we do in exit planning is that the exit planning ecosystem is so big. It includes health and wellness experts, CPAs, wealth managers, attorneys, and I don't think we concentrate enough on the personal planning side. So I really do appreciate you coming in and joining us. So with that, folks, we will see you on our next show, July 17th. So please, in the meantime, subscribe, listen, and leave a review on all of your podcast platforms. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.